Hey there, friends. In today's episode, I have an inspiring chat with a Paralympic swimmer. She shares her journey from being adopted from Siberia to becoming a champion athlete, her struggles, triumphs, and the power of perseverance. Grab a cup of coffee. You're in for a heartfelt story. Hi, everyone. It's Natalie. Welcome back. It's been a busy few weeks after taking my middle daughter back to college and having her car break down in southern Illinois between Colorado and Tennessee. I won't go into too much. You don't need to hear all of the specifics, but let me just say the topic of the episode today is perseverance, and it's something we are practicing here in the Tisdale household. Did you watch the Olympics? I find it so inspiring, so much fun, and my guest is likely someone you know or have heard of. Jessica Long, a Paralympic swimmer with an incredible journey. The Paralympics, by the way, are coming up. They follow the Olympics. Jess shares her experience growing up as an amputee adopted from Russia, from overcoming life's challenges to her daily rigorous training regimen. I caught her in between two of her major workouts. Jess opens up about her determination, her faith, and the importance of a positive mindset. She talks about the power of not giving up, finding worth beyond her athletic achievements, and the excitement of preparing for her sixth Paralympic Games. You'll be inspired, and your kids, if they are listening, maybe you're in the car with them or in the house, they will be inspired as well. I'd love to have you join my weekly newsletter and also subscribe to the podcast here, wherever you're listening, so that you don't miss out on a single interview on topics related to faith, health, and family. Let's get started today with Paralympic athlete Jessica Long. Jess, it's so good to talk to you, and it's go time for you.
Oh, yes. Yeah, we are about to leave for Paris in next week. So getting so excited.
So exciting. I'm enjoying just following the stories, of course, of the Olympians, but your story is unique in many ways. And I want to start by you introducing yourself a little more in depth, and why this, your sixth games, right?
Yes. Yeah.
Why this one is bigger and better, if I can put those words in your mouth, than ever, or how it's
Yeah.
different.
Well, my name's Jessica Long. I'm a Paralympic swimmer. I was adopted when I was a baby from Siberia, Russia. I was also born with a birth defect in both of my legs called fibular hemimelia. So when I came to the US, my parents were incredible. They had two children, adopted two, my brother and I from Russia, not biological. And then they had two more children. So I'm one of six kids, but they made the really difficult decision to amputate my legs when I was 18 months old. And I think for me, I've just wanted to be unstoppable. You know, I never wanted my disability to define me in any way. And it wasn't long after that, I joined a swim team at the age of 10, fell in love with the water, just the freedom that the water gives me. And it led me to the Paralympic movement. And I've been a part of it. I made my first team when I was 12, surprised everyone. I think I was the youngest. I'm one of the youngest to go, but the youngest to ever win a gold medal. And here I am, 32, getting ready for my sixth Paralympics. And I could not be more excited. And I can't even believe I'm still a part of it. But just so enjoying the ride and definitely trying to grow the Paralympics.
Wow. You've lived now a majority of your life as an Olympian.
Well, Paralympian, yeah.
Paralympian. Well, and do you see it any differently? I mean, when
Um,
I hear the amount of work, and probably
yeah,
even more so for you,
yeah,
I think it's important that we distinguish that because you do have different obstacles. But
yes,
but
yeah.
when people hear that, they think the same thing. They think the best of the best.
Yes, and I love that mindset, the best of the best. I think there was a long time that like it was always hard for me to correct people if they said I was a Olympian. And you know, I'm so proud to be a Paralympic athlete just because I've had to overcome obviously so much. And you know, you're hearing my story, but every single para athlete has this incredible story. And I love sharing this too. Just you know, the word para it's para because it's parallel to the Olympic Games. So obviously like their counterparts were Team USA, and I've had such a fun time. I love watching the Olympics, but we often say as para athletes, we're like, thanks for the warm up. And we'll see you soon.
Just help people understand. So, for those who haven't followed the Paralympics and haven't followed stories like yours, what
Yeah.
is it like? What does your life look like? What does training look like? What is the just the day to day you as an athlete?
Yeah, I mean, it's a full-time job, right? I am a professional swimmer. A typical week I'm swimming, now that I'm older, there's definitely a lot more quality work that I'm doing, but I'm still swimming anywhere between about 4 hours a day. I have weight training, Pilates, lots of recovery, ice baths, Epsom salt baths,
Mhm.
Theragunning, just trying to get my body ready for the next workout. And that definitely is super challenging, but it truly is one of the best jobs. It's also so hard, right? I've learned so much over my career, from the time that I was 12 to being the underdog to here I am, the very seasoned veteran. And my mindset is different, right? My perspective is different with Paralympics or just what I'm doing. And I love the training day in and day out, but it definitely is very taxing. But it's also rewarding. And there's lots of sacrifice that goes into it. And even here I am living out at the Olympic and Paralympic Training Center away from my husband and our puppy the last 6 months, just to trace a dream and to have no regrets.
Yeah. What advice and inspiration, and I know you've written about this and you tell your story, but we all go through challenges in life,
Mhm.
some much bigger than others. What inspiration do you impart on people?
Yeah, it's such a good question. I think for me, just with my whole life, right? I was born without legs. I've had so many surgeries with my on my legs and found swimming, and I've been adopted and I've worked through the feeling of abandonment or just wanting to prove myself, right? Maybe carrying that over into my athletic career, right? I've definitely gone through so many emotions and so many things. And I think for me, the inspiration that I just draw from is just that, life is hard, right? Life is going to continue to be hard. But I love this idea that we can face it head on, and no matter what our circumstances are, right? We can find ways to move forward. And I think it's so important that, not every day is going to be super positive. Like, it's okay, like, to have bad days, right? I certainly have bad days, and every day I still wake up and I'm an amputee. But I think if we can continue to shift our mindset, right, our mindset absolutely will dictate where our life will go. And, for me, I can't change my legs, and I have every reason to quit. I have every reason to make my legs an excuse. And I think for others, I just want to really teach them that, like, why not you to do extraordinary things instead of the why me mentality.
Yeah, that's a really neat one. I've heard that before, but not often enough of why not you? Why not you? It can be
Yeah.
you. But let's talk a little bit more about wanting to give up
Yeah.
because it's easy. In the long run, it's not, but it's easy to just throw in the towel and just, I'm done. Too much. It's too hard. Do you face that? Do you remember that as a child and even now, as a
Yeah.
professional swimmer?
It's so interesting. I see giving up as like, I don't know. I think obviously there's so many choices we have in our lives. And from an early age, I was just determined. I also didn't have a choice at that time with giving up, right? Like, I had to keep moving forward. And I think for me, people are so, it's like, I love that one of the quotes too, where it's like, you miss 100% of the shots that you don't take, right?
Mm.
Like, I never want to live my life with regrets. And I really, really try not to, right? I'm not really afraid of failure. And I think that's something I want to teach people too. Like, you can't be afraid of failure. Just starting is a success. And, I think for me, giving up, I especially I think if I truly viewed my legs and my life as such a negative, I don't think I would be where I am, right? If I just felt sorry for myself all the time and felt ashamed. And I definitely felt those emotions, right? As a kid, I was very confused. I couldn't understand why I was born without legs, especially when my little sisters had legs. And I think often it can feel like must have done something wrong. And I think just I'm so grateful for the people in my life and the perspective and just how I found ways to navigate it. And I'm super, therapy really helped me just open up into, I think there's so much vulnerability in being just sharing your story, right? That's such a power. Where there was a time I never wanted to share my story. I never wanted to show my legs. And I think for me, I want, when I do a lot of public speaking, it's so amazing just to be able to talk about so many different topics, right? I don't just talk about the professional side. I can talk to people who are adopted and we have felt very similar things, right? And abandonment's real, or being different in the world that wasn't designed for me, right? Or just competing and winning medals, but also knowing that that's not where my worth comes from. So I love public speaking. I think that's why I'm so excited for this book to come out.
Wow. Where does your worth come from? You mentioned that, and I
Yeah.
wanted to go a different direction, but I want to ask you that.
Yeah, well, I mean, I'm a Christian, so I love the Lord. That's where my worth comes from, and oftentimes it can be hard, right? I've definitely had a really long battle just with that feeling, like why would God make me this way? But I gave my heart to Christ, my whole heart, when I was 22. It's so dry here in Colorado. I always forget.
Yes, it is.
Um, But yeah, I know at the end of the day, swimming is just something I love to do. It's a talent that God gave me, and I've been able to touch so many lives through this talent that God gave me. So truly that's where that's come from.
Do you think that you were born with a drive to succeed, or do you think you were taught that as a child?
This has been such a good question, and especially just with doing media for the new book. It's something I've worked really hard to try to figure out in therapy, right? Like it's that like nature versus nurture type thing. Was I always just determined, or was that truly just a response, like a or a trauma response, right? Like all my life I've been told I was so determined, but I also was fueled with anger, right? And I think something that's also really interesting, right? I was fueled by anger and just so angry with the fact that I was given up for adoption. But years later, I found out that maybe it wasn't even my birth mom's choice. But also, I never thought of her perspective, right? So, I mean, obviously, it's 100% has made me who I am today. And I don't really know. I don't believe I had any other choice but to just be determined. But I do definitely have this competitive determination that I don't always see everyone having. And that can sometimes be so confusing for me because I'm like, am I the only one that's just this way? But I also think there was a fight, right? There was a fight in me to prove, I've always been proving myself, right? To prove that I wasn't just a girl with no legs, that I was worth it, that, I can find a way to forgive my birth mom, and that, truly was the best thing. And it doesn't have to be black or white, right? I used to think, gosh, like, what would my life be like in Russia? My whole life I've been told it wouldn't be good, and it wouldn't be good. Like I definitely know that it would be very different. But also sometimes when I think about my family that I was adopted into, right? Nobody asked a 13-year-old or 13-month-old me, but like what I wanted. I didn't have a choice. So it's okay to live in just the middle, the gray area, that I love my family, that I'm along, but I also have this story, and I wouldn't be who I am today without going through all the circumstances, or being an amputee. So I think I developed, I think, I don't know, there's not many times I look in my life and think that I gave up, but
Yeah.
I don't know. I just think I'm determined.
Yeah. It's just always interesting to me to hear where determination comes from. And for a lot of people, it is, I have to prove something. And that's
Yeah.
okay. That if that's your motivation and it helps you be successful, it actually can be really beautiful. You come from a big family, so
hmm
6 kids, right? How are they in watching you compete, and are
Yeah.
any of them athletes, and how has that played into your success?
Yeah, so I come from such a wonderful family. My parents have been married, I think, 42 years
Wow.
now. So I have an older sister and an older brother, and then my brother Josh, who was adopted, he's older, and then two little sisters. So just such a good family. We were all homeschooled. I especially was homeschooled because of all the surgeries that I had to have. So I would go in for a surgery and have to rest and recover for up to a month and get fitted with a new set of prosthetics. And my siblings were just amazing with, watching all the movies that I wanted to watch, or all the popsicles I could eat, or, my parents got us a big trampoline so I didn't have to run around the grass and cut up my knees. Because when I'm not wearing my prosthetics, I walk on my knees. But they were just super great, right? And I definitely don't think, there wasn't anything I heard that I couldn't do, right? I would climb on top of a refrigerator. I was always doing somersaults and flips. And I think at times though it was really hard just because I was the one that was different, right? I'm the blonde in the family, and I was also the one born on my legs. And I do remember sneaking into my little sister's like looking into her crib when she was little and looking at her legs and being so confused as to why I didn't have legs. But my parents would explain it to me over and over and over again. And I think when I look back, I had a really hard time with comprehending, right? Comprehending why it was different. Why was I not born with legs? Why, so we went over it a lot as a family, but I definitely know like there was nothing that I couldn't do. None of my family were swimmers. My little sisters tried out for the swim team for a few years. But my parents just made sure that every kid had something they felt good at. And I am positive that if my parents forced me into swimming, or became obsessed with my success, I would have been like, no, because no was my favorite word when I was little. But they just let me do my own thing, and they were just proud of me no matter what. And they allowed me to dream with them, and we dreamed big, but I was never just like, I don't know. I wanted them to love me when I started winning, but I always knew that they never really made me feel like they cared. That was more me, but yeah, it was great.
Yeah. Do you think, okay, so you're going here to the games, you're leaving in a week. What
Mhm.
does that look like? You've done it before.
Yes.
How do you set yourself up for winning?
Yeah, I think for me this time going into it, I'm not, I was talking with my coach today about this like this morning. I don't know if I'm super concerned about winning this time around, right? I was just thinking, I've won all the races that I've ever wanted to win. And I'm so grateful for the support I've always had over the years, right? Everyone has gotten me here. I often say, when I get a gold medal, it's incredible, but I'm the one receiving the gold medal for so many people who helped me. But I think for me, it's like the first time that I'm like, I think I'm just going to do this for myself.
Mm.
But I also do often feel like I just have one person in the audience that's watching me, and I just try to think of like God being there with me. And I think that really helps me, just especially being a Christian, just like, okay, like, you can't give up. And the last 3 years have been really hard, right? Mentally, just like, why am I still doing this? And I don't have the same joy as I once did, the same sparkle, but I have the same love. I've always loved swimming. But I think for me, I just know that my worth, whatever happens, the sun will rise. And I think that's been really reassuring, even watching the Olympics, just knowing that, I've worked so hard, but it doesn't take away what I've already done. And that's okay.
Yeah, yeah. I know you have a dog, so you'll have grace for mine, who seems to really like you. Who's like
Oh,
just kind of sitting here barking little in the back. There's nothing even to bark at. That's
oh yeah.
what I've read about your special dog, your
Oh,
sweetie. So tell us about that.
oh
In your
yeah.
small little family, your
Oh my
husband, and
gosh. Yeah, so I got my husband Lucas. We got married in October. This October will be 5 years. Super great, one of the best people I've ever met. Obviously best friend, love him. But I never grew up with dogs, and I was not a dog person actually. Now it's completely different. But
it
I
changes
got him a
fast, don't you
dog.
know?
I know. I got him a dog for our second wedding anniversary, and it's a like a cute little golden doodle, and his name is Goose. And Goose, of course, like loves me. Like spent the first like 8 weeks really taking care of him because my husband at the time was working in DC. And I was like, I have no idea what I'm doing, but it's been the most like it's just taught me so much, just selfless love. I
Mm,
can't even. I think that's been one of the hardest things being out here at the training center, just not being with my husband or not seeing Goose, and we love doing our walks every night after dinner and just stuff that I can't. I think that's why I'm so excited for Paris to kind of get moving along, just so I can move back home
yeah.
and
Are they coming to Paris?
yeah, my whole family's coming to Paris, and I think it would be really great, especially since in Tokyo no one could come with the pandemic.
Mm.
So this will be really, really sweet, and I'm so looking forward to just getting a big hug no matter what, right? Obviously, I want to win. I do have that. I love competing, and I want to win, but also understanding that I'm going to be okay no matter what happens.
Yeah, I have a daughter who played. She wrapped up her career, college lacrosse.
Ah,
And so much of what you're saying, and my audience listening here will be a lot of moms, a lot of families. And I say that about my daughter because your sport can be taken away from you at any time. And having your worth be in something else, because I mean, even I changed careers after 28 years. Like
yeah.
if that's what you live your life for, then it's going to be hard to find happiness.
Yes, yeah. And I think what the best advice that I've ever been given was just, Jess, you're a person who loves to swim. You're not just a swimmer. And I
Mm.
think that's really helped my mentality that, like, okay, whatever happens, whatever results, it doesn't take away the sacrifice. It doesn't take away the hard work. It doesn't take away the fact that I'm loved and that my parents are going to be there no matter what. My husband's going to be there no matter what. But I love this idea. And one of the girls who's competing in Paris right now just wrote this, and I think she was expected to win, and she ended up getting sixth place, and she just said, hey, the sun is still going to rise tomorrow. And I think we put such an expectation that if you're not winning gold, you're a failure. And it's like, I'm so proud of some of those bronze medals that I've won
Yeah.
because I still got it, I still got a medal. um but yeah, it's definitely, I'm just super grateful for my parents in that perspective. But I do think every athlete or anything that you go through, you almost have to learn that, right? Where does your identity lie? And maybe that's just finding purpose, right, in your life. And I think for me, I know that I have purpose after swimming, right, to inspire others. And I think that gives me a little bit more joy to keep moving forward.
Tell me about the book. Tell me about writing it. Why did you decide to write a book, and what can we expect to see in it, as it's not out yet, right?
Yeah. So it's called Beyond the Surface. I actually have two other books, one for 10 and unders, and I just had a children's book come out last year called The Mermaid with No Tail. But this one was kind of alongside The Mermaid with No Tail. But this one really dives deep into just so many vulnerable pieces of my story and memories and just some of the hardest parts of my life that I wasn't always super open or sharing with people. And I think, I hope that people reading my story or things that I've gone through, that it's so real and vulnerable that they feel something also, like they can resonate with it. Whether it's the adoption piece, right? Or not feeling loved, right? It's a gold medalist guide to finding and loving yourself. And it takes a lot of time, and it takes a lot. It's, you can climb one mountain and realize that there's always going to be another mountain to climb, another peak. But I think for me, it's very, very vulnerable. And my sister actually helped write it with me. So that's super special. And she's someone that I absolutely trust. She's the one that came back to Russia with me when I met my birth mom. There's some tricks in there, some exercises, one of them, just sometimes when I have negative thoughts about myself or my body or my legs or just self-image, right? I definitely have this idea of seeing little Jess, and I walk you through different exercises and stuff, but it's very vulnerable, and it really just dives deep into ways to love yourself through this journey of life.
Yeah. I didn't realize that you went back to Russia with your sister, and how did that go? You
Yeah,
talk
I mean,
about
it
that in the
was
book, but yeah.
Yeah, it was definitely one of the hardest things I've ever done. My birth mom was 16 when she had me, and I think my whole life, right, I was just so confused as to, why wasn't I enough? And to top it all off, my birthday, I'm actually a leap year birthday. So I remember thinking, I only get a birthday every 4 years.
Oh my.
Confused,
Yeah.
born without legs, like, just I couldn't be more different. And thinking that, okay, well, literally the calendar just skips over me, right? Like I don't even exist. And I think I think we as humans, or even just anyone listening or reading the book, right? We can so often feel like that one little thing does have an impact, right? Birthdays are so hard for me, but I also love to be celebrated. It's so weird. And, birth was a time that it was like, okay, well, I was born. It doesn't show on the calendar. What? Like, I just don't exist. Like, she just doesn't think of me. But I ended up going and meeting her when I was 21. A Russian reporter went and found her for me. And I dreamed about meeting her my whole life. She named me Tatiana, which is my middle name. But I never thought that she would actually marry my birth father, right? Because my parents were given a note just as she was too young. And her parents, I think, were alcoholics, and just she couldn't take care of a disabled baby. But she ended up marrying my birth father, and I went back to Russia, and it was crazy. I went to the orphanage I was adopted from, and they said I was the only orphan to ever come back. And I met the woman who handed me over to my dad, because my dad was the one that went to Russia while my mom stayed home with the other two kids, to get both of us. It was like a 2 or 3 week process with paperwork. But yeah, I'll never forget. I heard her crying when she came outside of the house, and I remember hugging her. And I mean, at this point, my story was all over Russia. So there was probably about 30 cameras in their tiny little village. And she came out in her purple house, and I just remember hugging her and thinking, like, this is my mom, my birth mom. And then I met my birth father, and they have 3 children after me. But it was just pretty wild. I have green eyes with like a gold in them, and they have the exact same colored eyes, and I got to show them my legs. But I think the biggest thing for me was just the power of forgiveness, right? I think there's so often we can hold on to things so tightly, right? And I often think of, like, could you imagine squeezing your fist so hard? Like, oftentimes I feel like I'm just like, okay, just let go, Jess, like release. And I think I talk a lot about that in the book, and the book's been a couple years in the making, so I'm trying to remember everything. But it was just such a beautiful moment, and truly from that moment, I just forgave her, and it just completely changed my perspective. And I remember thinking, how do I swim now when I'm not as angry, right? Because anger is such a powerful emotion that can fuel you.
Yeah.
So it was a whole thing, but anyone can go and watch it. It's a documentary on Peacock, and it's called A Long Way Home. So it's like 25
The whole
minutes.
story. Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you keep in touch with them now at all?
Yeah, I do, through Facebook. When I met her, there was about three translators, so it was a little difficult to hear or to
Mhm.
understand. But we translate a lot on Facebook, and my sister after me, Anastasia, has two kids, so it's pretty wild. It's just I didn't think that would come that early on in my life. I thought I would maybe find my birth mom um years down the road, right? Just maybe when I was married or had kids. So truly amazing. Truly, not all adoption stories are like that, though. And
Mhm.
I've definitely learned that with my public speaking and sharing my story and just what it felt like. But
Yeah.
just having that experience, I hope to give back and to talk, to other adoptive people.
I just finished a book. Maybe you're familiar with Brene Brown and I think it's from the Rising Strong book, but you've touched on something that is not easy for people and yet so, so powerful, and that is vulnerability. Like
Yeah.
when you're able to actually talk about it, because we
Yeah.
hide so much, and like you talk about these things so openly and with such confidence, and I know they're probably still not easy, but being able to actually talk about the hardships, it's like it opens this door to power.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I truly don't think I would have ever gotten to this place if it wasn't for therapy. And, it takes time, and I've been in therapy since 2016 just to process everything, right? We all have normals, we all have our own normals, right? We all have our own stories. But that vulnerability piece when I was little, I thought was weakness. I literally
Hmm.
remember being
And
like,
to be real.
I'm tough all the time and I'm not weak. And honestly, I just have gotten to a point where it's like, I want you to love me for me, all of me, right? I think maybe that it comes from the adoption piece. Just take it or leave it. This is me, and I want you to love me for me. But just going to therapy, I've been able to just connect all these dots and just truly just know myself and find confidence in my story, and to not look at my story and see all the bad parts, but see all the progress I've made. And I think that's so important for everyone because there's stuff I didn't even think of that I've been able to dig up. And I'm like, oh my gosh, like I never even connected that, you
Mm.
know? Um, Even just like something so silly or simple as, sometimes people will be like, oh my gosh, you have blue eyes. And I'm like, no, they're green and gold, which is because my birth family has the green and gold. Like little things where I'm like, why am I always defensive with the blue eye? Like, I don't know. It's just been so crazy to be able to connect the dots. Or homeschooling, homeschooling, I did not like homeschooling. And I think it's because I just wanted to be competitive and I always wanted to prove myself. But I truly think therapy is so incredible and so powerful. And the more that we can open up with each other and share our stories and talk and connect, I just think that you just don't feel as alone.
When they think of the people who might be listening, thinking, I should do that, or maybe I can be that way, or just finding, you never know how someone is connecting with you when they hear your story and how that can completely change someone's life.
Yeah, yeah, especially in the athletic world, right? We talk a lot about, finding your worth and your identity. And the more I talk to athletes about it, and we just kind of laugh, like it's so comforting. Or the fact that I'm in the Paralympics, right? Just to be near people who look like me, their bodies look like me, right? That has changed everything for me and given me confidence. But when I was a little girl, right, I didn't even like wearing shorts in the summer, right? I didn't understand. I didn't want people to stare. And it's amazing because again, when we go back to that why not you, and it's so easy to fall into that. Well, I could have, or why me, or this feeling sorry for. I don't want to be a victim in my life. I
Mm.
don't want that for me, and I don't want to teach that to the next generation of young girls or just the next generation. And that's why I'm still swimming, right? I'm not swimming because I mean, it hurts every single day. It's hard. I'm training all the time, but there's a bigger purpose.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. What thread have you found? I could ask this of athletes at any level, but especially your level. What thread have you found in the Paralympians that is unique or inspiring? You have a lot of friends in that community.
Yeah, I don't, just how powerful our bodies are. Maybe I think just that there's so much confidence in these girls, these women with differences. But it doesn't take away that we still have hard days, right? Just that the world sees us as so inspiring. And I want to be inspirational for my athletic career and what I've done and what I can do with this body that I've been given. but I don't think it's that inspiring to go grocery shopping or fill up my gas or anything like that. But I also think that, I can't really dictate where people draw inspiration, right? I think that's why I do love social media, and I love, seeing videos of amputees do things. I think it's so encouraging. But I don't know, I definitely want people to be more inspired, and I think that's how a lot of us feel, just be inspired by our athletic abilities versus, I don't know, it's a hard one though. It's a very fine line of, I don't want people to think that it's inspiring if I just do simple tasks, but
Yeah. But
that's
I
the
think
thing.
part of athletes at any elite level, and that's why I asked that question of like a thread. And often it's they're able to let things go, or they have
Yeah.
a higher power, or these things that we can use in everyday life. Like we
Yeah.
can use them in our hardships, in our competitive parts, and getting jobs and all of that. It's just interesting to me to hear where people draw that fire.
Yeah, well, on Team USA for the para swimming team, we do have a saying that it's just shock the world, right? Shock the world. Because I think, again, this world is not designed really for amputees, right? We are a minority. I mean, I see it all the time with my friends who are in wheelchairs, right? It's just stuff you don't think about until it happens to you, right? My husband, in March, tore his Achilles and had to navigate, you know, just going through that surgery and being on crutches. And I'm like, I have friends on crutches because they're a one-legged amputee and a prosthetic doesn't fit good. Or it was a really good, interesting, like just to hear his perspective. But I would say for us, we really talk a lot about shocking the world and proving to others that we can do it, and we can do it really fast, or, shock you. I'll never forget, there was one time I was swimming and I wanted to share a lane. I was just like getting my workout in at like a local pool. And the guy was like not swimming. We can split lanes, right? I swim, and I just, hey, like, would you mind splitting the lane? And I think you just said something like, oh, well, like, I'm gonna swim really fast. And I was like, you're not even going that fast. Like, this is my warm up. But yes, I love this idea of shocking the world.
Yeah, well, I can't wait to watch you do that again.
Thanks.
And I'm sure people ask you this all the time, and maybe you don't even know, but is this going to be the last one, or are you just going to keep going?
I would love to end my career in LA in 2028.
Mm.
I'm not swimming as many events this time. I'm actually kind of swimming half. So I normally swim about 9 events, it feels like. This time going to Paris, I'm swimming 4. So if I would love to end my career on home soil and kind of have my farewell, my goodbye. So I definitely plan to swim in LA, but probably just one event, and then just,
What's your
excited
favorite?
to start the
So
next
you have
chapter.
4 that will watch you in, and which of those, which are your favorite? What is your favorite?
Yeah, so going to I'm opening up with the 100 backstroke, which is one of my harder events. I've gotten like bronze in that a few times. I have the 200 IM, which I have for the last 4 games won gold, so I have a 4-peat. It's going to be pretty hard to get that 5th gold, but obviously I'm going to try. I have the 400 free, which I won. I won an individual gold in that when I was 12, and then I have the 100 fly that I am should be the defending gold medalist. So we'll see, but it's a great group of girls, super competitive, and that's what I love about the Paralympics. That I don't know, I just love racing, and I'm just going to try my best.
Can't wait to watch you coming up here in Paris. Best of luck.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Thank you,
and God
sister.
bless. And thank you for sharing your story. Thank you for being vulnerable.
Thank you for having me.